What's going on, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Black Sheep Podcast. I am your host, Mike.
And I am your co-host, Meka.
I mean, we're both hosts.
Okay.
Co-hosts.
Well, I am your host, Meka.
Yeah.
We got a lot of stuff going on in the world today.
Lots of things going on today. We were shooting to record this a couple of weeks ago when other things were going on, but I got COVID and now I'm fully recovered.
How was your COVID experience?
It wasn't as bad as, of course, others.
Wait, were you vaccinated?
I was vaccinated.
Okay.
Actually, I got vaccinated back in June. And yeah, I felt it. I caught COVID, I think, from an event where I was shooting photography at. And I felt it coming on. Like I felt my throat starting to get a tickle, and then a cough developed, and then body aches came, which I've never had like a sickness before, really, where I've had body aches. So that was a first time experience for me. And that was something that was awful in the sense of like every time I moved, it just literally hurt to move.
I remember us talking beforehand. You thought it was a sinus infection.
I don't remember that, but yeah.
Sinus? Don't you have sinuses? Like, I remember last year, didn't you have some issues with sinuses?
Nah, man, I don't know.
Okay, see.
But
fucking up.
Yeah, it came on, and it just progressively got worse over a couple of days. And so I went and took a COVID test, one of the PCR tests, because I had a friend who had taken a rapid test, actually that was with me, and her rapid test came back negative. But then it turns out later on that her PCR test was actually positive for COVID. And so I went and took a test. I tested positive for COVID, then began the 2-week isolation period. And man, that brought back like almost PTSD from 2020. Just being isolated. Luckily, I had my dog this time. Last year during COVID, I think I got my dog right at the beginning of quarantine in 2020. And but yeah, man, it sucked. It sucked being isolated for weeks on end.
So would you say that was the worst symptom? Like, not necessarily the worst part about it was the isolation?
Or? Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Going back to being isolated for 2 weeks, after we all had experienced that as like the world in 2020, and then coming out of that, it's like, okay, never want to do that again. And then having to go back and do something that you never wanted to do again, that was awful. And, the weather is nice now. There are different events going on because Oklahoma's opening, well, not opening back up. Oklahoma's been open since 2020.
Okay. So let me ask you this question now. Since you've had COVID, is that Delta variant that's been spreading around, what do you think should be happening right now in our city? Because right now, we don't have a mask mandate. We've got everything open. Should we have a mask mandate?
Yeah. Here's the thing. Oklahoma has always been open. We've never like closed down or anything like that. Even in Tulsa, what was it, like 2 weeks? I think we might have.
Yeah, we did a little rolling stop.
Yeah, it wasn't a shutdown. It was a rolling stop. That's perfect. That encapsulates what Oklahoma's view on the pandemic really has been. But it sucks, man. It sucks seeing, our hospitals be completely full here in Oklahoma, us having like really no ICU beds. We both have a ton of friends here in the medical field. And I'm constantly asking them like, yo, are our hospitals as bad as the news say they are? Do we really not have any beds right now? And all of them are like, yeah. We don't have, there aren't any ICU beds or anything like that. So it just makes me think, not even from a COVID standpoint, which, it's awful that people are contracting this. But if anything happens, if you get into a car accident, if a shooter goes on a rampage here in Tulsa or anything like that, we don't have any ICU beds to treat quickly. Those people. Yeah.
But you know what? This was the whole reason why we went to the lockdown to begin with last year, was to get like supplies so that we didn't have a backup in ICU. And here we are, like in positions worse than what we feared last year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does suck. What's crazy, I just saw a report that, so New Zealand just had their New Zealand is on lockdown right now for one case of COVID.
They're not playing. That leader, she not playing.
She is not playing, and it's crazy because I haven't even looked at the comment section whenever I see when I saw that news story, because I didn't want to see what the comment section said. But like the emojis, like the main reactions to it were all like likes and loves, and I was like, oh wow. So like, I think people are respecting the way like New Zealand handled has handled the pandemic, and it's just like, man, I wish we had some kind of like leadership like that, because it sucks. I mean, it sucks for all of us. Like, I'm sure New Zealand, like they would even say like, yo, this sucks, we don't want to do this. But sometimes in life, like, you have to do things that you don't want to do.
But it's not even that, like, it's an America thing. It's not like a leadership thing, because it don't matter who's leading. It don't matter who says what. Whatever mandate's going in, people are going to be, America's going to be America. People are going to still do their thing, because who are we to be told what to do, you know? So
yeah. How has that played out for you here in Tulsa, as far as circles that you run in here in Tulsa, relationships, things like that? Like, how has it played out with the people kind of doing what they want to do? And
man, I'll tell you what, early pandemic, I mean, it really put a strain on relationships, where you see people who like didn't believe in like COVID. It was like the pandemic, and it was like,
every time I hear that word, a piece of me dies.
I know.
Whenever someone says the word pandemic, and I just want to smack them.
Like, I feel you there. But in that was its own thing, and then people started getting sick. I mean, heck, you getting sick too is like, oh, like, okay, that makes this. I'm vaccinated, but it's still one of those things where it's like, yo, there's still breakthrough infections. I'm I'm a wheelchair user, and so I know early last year there was like a big fear for health. Once I got my vaccination, I felt pretty fine. I felt good being back out and stuff. And then now it's like, all right, I'm almost back to that level of like a little worried now. Got to put my mask on it indoors and things like that. And it's like really just trying to see what is our way out from this. Like, is this, I'm no longer looking at COVID as a thing we're going to get to an end and we're not going to think about it anymore. I think last year we were all thinking about that, and it was like vaccines were going to be the savior.
End all be all, yeah. That's how it was presented. Like, yo, we're going to flatten the curve and we're going to crush this thing.
Well, we probably would have had we all teamed up and did.
If we would have been like New Zealand.
Yeah, we did what we were supposed to do. But again, that's why we're having all of the, as the virus transfers from people to people, it learns. And so now it's more so looking at COVID as a thing that we're going to live with, because now we're talking about booster shots in the fall. Not excited for that, but I don't know. Did you have any reaction when you got your shots?
No, I didn't. So I don't really ever get sick. Like I do get like tonsillitis once a year, but outside of that, like I rarely get sick.
No, oh man. Oh, this man coughing COVID on me.
So that's why that's gonna be a blooper. So that's why, like, even catching COVID was kind of alarming for me. The fact that, number one, I was vaccinated. Number two, I don't really ever get sick. So for me to get this, I was like, oh damn, like this is.
Bro, I'd have been freaked out had I got it.
I mean, honestly, and so for those 2 weeks where I'm like isolated by myself, I'm having to really focus on my thoughts during that time period, because I'm a firm believer that, like, mentally, what we think about like diagnosis and things like that, we can make things a lot worse than they are. And so the whole time, I was sick, I was constantly focusing on my thoughts, like, yo, this is like, number one, this is not going to take you out. Like, whenever I would get a little cough, or like a little shortness of breath, and I could like feel the anxiety start to pick up, I just like, you know what, calm down and breathe as much as you can.
Yeah, because it's great. Everyone that is filling up the ICUs are mostly people that are not vaccinated.
Right.
And so, I mean, the vaccine is helping with people getting, not getting as sick. And so I wonder again, but you still had to fight some thoughts on like, yo, is this going to take me out? Like, 'cause I think I would have been fearful like that too.
Yeah. I mean, every single night I would sit at home on my couch, I'm watching TV. It's the shortness of breath, I think, was the scariest thing. To me, that's like that would be one of my most terrifying ways to die, is like suffocation. Like we're literally trying to breathe and you can't. Preceded by drowning. Drowning is probably one of the worst ways to die, I think.
Look, I've had this conversation.
Fire or drowning? Which one would you rather go?
I'd go drowning.
I think so too.
But you know what they say is that they say you'll die from smoke inhalation before you burn.
Yeah, forget the smoke. It's well vented. Which one are you go? Like fire?
Oh, I'm going dry. I don't want to be cooked.
Right.
Like I watch a turkey every now. I ain't trying to be that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's a huge fear for me. It's like just not being able to breathe, because breathing is something that's we do it unconsciously. So to have to like focus on breathing, for me when I was at home, it was that brought up like some anxiety, and so I'm like constantly having to like train my mind like this is fine. Either change positions, like sit up, stand up for a minute, let your lungs like. My mom is a nurse, and so my mom was telling me, to make sure I'm doing deep lung exercises, like taking deep breaths, really like working to expand my lungs. That way, pneumonia doesn't have a chance to set in or anything like that. And so there's a big mental aspect, I feel like, of COVID, especially because we hear about how in the news how bad it is. It's like 600,000 lives, I believe, have been lost, unfortunately, with it and stuff. And so when you hear all of that, it's easy for the mind just to wander and be like, this is going to be the end of me. And so a big part of my 2 weeks was, telling myself, don't make it worse than what it really is. But I mean, with you, so you work in the schools. Your schools are about to start back up here. Yep. Schools actually started today, the first day for a lot of people. How do you feel about as far as like mask mandates in the schools? Since you're going to be in the schools with students and stuff like that, like what are your thoughts there?
I think that a mask mandate is probably the simplest thing that you can do to avoid an outbreak, because the worst case scenario is there's an outbreak and you shut down school for 2 weeks. There was a school, because I remember last year when we first went back to in-person, soon after going back in person, there was a school like in Verdigris that shut down for 2 weeks as soon as we went back.
Right.
And so, I mean, if you're going to try to prevent the worst case scenario, how about we do the easiest thing to prevent the worst case scenario? And so, I mean, kids are going to be kids, but you still got to put rules in place and give them some guidance on what to do. So I would definitely, at my school, you ain't coming in unless you got a mask. And so I think that, we're still going to do our temperature check. We're still going to do masking. And so to me, it's crazy for anyone not to do that. You're looking at different states where it's like they're fighting with superintendents for saying that they want kids to wear masks. Right. They're threatening them with their checks like that. That don't make sense. How do you threaten a school for for taking public health actions with the thing that we say is the most vulnerable, and that's our kids?
The craziest shit that I have seen has been these school board meetings with, parents there, school board meetings discussing if a mask mandate is going to be put in place. And of course, you have the public there, the parents there and stuff speaking up. But some of the wildest videos I've seen ever have been the way some of these parents have spoken up at the meetings, the things that they're saying. And then even afterwards, once the meetings are done, I saw some videos from Tennessee where, doctors and nurses who testified in the meeting saying, hey, like, this would be beneficial for us to have a mask mandate. Their lives being threatened after those school board meetings are done, like the mobs of people surrounding their cars saying, we know where you live, we're going to find you, we're going to make your life hell, for speaking up and saying that, all right, for speaking up and saying, that mask mandates will be beneficial. Like, basically, we're going to hunt you down for that. That's the wildest thing. I've never thought I would see something like that.
What do you think? I mean, I know that we live in the hyper politicized like time where, everything gets infused with politics. And so I think that you have people that are reacting out of a certain motivation that they don't even know is like driving them. Like again, this whole mask versus no mask, like vaccine versus no vaccine. It's like why in the political lines that it's drawn against. Like, how do we get out from that? Like, how do we get away from this? That's a big question.
Yeah, it's one that I'm not sure because
I'm just glad you didn't ask it to me. So.
I don't understand why it even became political in the first place. This the whole masking is taking away my rights, speech, and so that really, to me, I'm just like, man, there are so many other things that we can be fighting for as Americans, as Tulsans, as Oklahomans, but as a whole, as Americans, so many other changes we could be fighting for in our country. How do we fix education in America? How do we fix our homeless population? Or help that? How do we help our medical industry, people from going in bankruptcy from medical bills and stuff? But we're fighting over a stupid piece of cloth or whatever it is over your face. Like that is the fight that people are willing to fight to the death for. And to me, it's like
that's the hill people are willing to die.
I didn't want to actually introduce that yet, which is why
I got you. I know. But you know what's crazy? It's America. We don't have the greatest self-awareness or context awareness, because again, the things that we fight over here, we don't really know what struggle is. There's so much going on.
We don't know what losing your freedoms really look like.
Speaking on losing freedoms, let's talk about what's going on in Afghanistan.
Yeah. I mean,
side note, transition God over here.
Just a 2-second pause for the transition. Yeah. Like, I don't even know what to make of that. So we're in our 30s. I remember as a kid, of course we remember September 11th. Which is...
Where were you on that day?
I was in 6th grade English class in the back of the classroom near the window. So I was in Maryland at the time. I grew up on the East Coast. And so right outside of Washington, D.C. in Montgomery County, 6th grade English class. It was like early afternoon, probably before lunch, I think. And I'll never forget my English teacher. She came in and she said they flattened the World Trade Center, and I had no idea what I didn't know if they were like really called the World Trade Center. To me, it was always the Twin Towers growing up. So I was like, the World Trade Center, they flattened it. What does that even mean? And then I think in one of my next classes, then the TVs, the teacher started turning on the TVs. Those big TV carts that they would push in. Yeah. They turn on the TVs, and you're watching it, and you're like, oh my God.
Did you grasp it then?
Well, yes, because then, so like all of our schools in the area, when we went to like Code Blue and stuff, because again, we're 30 minutes outside of DC and the Pentagon. So we're all like Code Blue starts, and then I start seeing kids getting plucked from the class one by one, like, hey, your parents are here to pick you up. Some kids, their families, why did I say DC? Well, DC for the Pentagon. But okay, in New York. It happened in New York. I don't know why I harped on DC for so long. But it was because of the Pentagon. We had friends whose families worked in DC. My uncle was actually in the Pentagon when it got hit.
Did it get hit? I'm just kidding.
Okay. It was like QAnon stuff, dog. But yeah, just seeing like kids, and eventually like an hour into that, just school shut down. They let everyone go from school. And I remember my parents coming, my stepmom coming and picking me up, and us going home, still not really having an idea like what is going on. Everyone's crying, leaving school. Then I get to the house and turn on the TV, and those images will stay in our brains forever. But we remember what got us into the war on terror and into Afghanistan. So we've basically lived this for 2/3 of our lives.
Yeah, that's crazy when you think we've been there for 20 years.
And that's one of the longest standing things in our lives has been this war on terror.
So now we are, pulling out of Afghanistan, and it's been a complete shit show.
Yeah.
And right now, everyone is trying to blame each other. There's, I heard a quote. Someone said, "Failure is an orphan," because nobody wants to own it. Nobody wants to own.
Damn.
Yeah. So now we got everyone saying, "It's this person, it's that person."
Yeah.
And honestly,
it's not the right time for it to do that shit.
From everything it was like there was not going to be any good way of pulling out. Now there has been a colossal failure of the planning and the execution. Just because I was kind of reading something on the timeline and trying to get people out, and the Taliban just being so ready. Because one, it don't make sense to me how we just announced that, we gonna be out from here. We gonna be out by this date. Just telegraphing, letting them know, like, all right, bet.
So the Taliban just sitting back, just going, all right, September 2nd, we are
do
doing
this. Like, they put their own plan together. They had a better plan put together than we had a plan coming out.
So. Facts. Well, what's crazy, we're currently right now we're living through us pulling out all of our, the U.S. Ambassadors and stuff like that from Afghanistan right now. We're kind of seeing that humanitarian crisis. But a few months ago, we had an Air Force base there. We had a base in Afghanistan that
ground or something.
We're gonna butcher it.
Yeah,
but we literally left that base overnight without telling anyone there. We packed up, we moved all of our people from the base and just left it in the dead of the night without telling the Afghani people. The Afghans, I think is the correct term. But the fact that we started that before in the past, it's like, wait, why are we acting? Why is this the way that we're choosing to do this? Just spring this on them.
Which is crazy is it would have made more sense to even just keep an air base and then, just this be the spot we getting people in and out from.
Absolutely. Instead
of one spot.
Instead of the images coming out of Kabul, the international airport, which
it's terrible.
When I saw the video of that plane taking off and the person falling from the side of the plane, instant went back to September 11th. And just the terror and the hopelessness someone has to feel in order to get to the point where they're holding on to the side of a cargo plane, knowing that you're not going to be able to get inside the plane, knowing that I'm probably going to fall to my death. It brought me back to September 11th when you saw the images of people jumping from buildings on fire, and it's just like, I know I'm not going to survive this, but I can't stay here any longer. And that's, again, those images I'm sure are going to be stuck in our brains forever. But that's where it's like us here in America, we're crying about a mask. And yet there are people who are willing to hold on to the side of a cargo plane somewhere else because of shit that we've came in there and done. It's hard. I feel a sense of ownership in a sense for the situation in Afghanistan. Because it's like, I'm an American and we came in and we've been there for 20 years and, have ruined a lot of lives.
Well, I won't just say we ruined a lot. I also say that, that 20 years wasn't necessarily in vain because there are some people you look at the girls and the different women that have been able to work. There are lives that have been drastically changed because of the presence that America has.
Absolutely. And lives saved. And
it's one of those things where, again, life is that seasons. We are looking at the end of this season, the way it's not ending well. But I don't think that we should just look at the whole.
It's not indicative of the entire thing. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
No, absolutely not. But actually, I even wrote an article yesterday on, because side note, I'm a journalist. That was like I don't want to like humble brag there.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, he's the plug.
Actually, for the Black Wall Street Times. I actually wrote an article today about veterans' responses to the way that we've pulled out, because a lot of veterans are now speaking up. And a lot of them are feeling a sense of hopelessness and, questioning, was the last 20 years in vain? The fact that a lot of them can't get their interpreters or their interpreters' families out of Afghanistan into America, even though the interpreters helped them
Survive
for decades. There are people in Afghanistan who have helped our military, and the fact that they're not already here, they should already be here. When our military people came, they should have been coming. They should have been over on those planes with them.
I can't imagine how hard it is for a vet who, again, you're taught no man left behind.
Right.
And it's like, we got thousands of people currently right now, that if things hold the way they are, we're leaving a crap ton of people behind.
And the biggest thing is the vets, from the articles and the videos I watched from them, were saying, like, we promised to these people, hey, if you help us in our in our military endeavors here, like, if you help us on the back end, we're going to get you.
Right.
We got you, right. And so can you imagine, like, promising someone, if you help me with this, I got you. 20 years pass, 10 years pass, however long the tours were, and then they leave, or like right now, current times, it's like, ooh, sorry. Like, I know I said I got you, but see the way things happen. Like, I can't imagine the mental toll that must take on the veterans.
I'm sure they're experiencing some guilt.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that.
And it's just awful. Like. And so, but instead, our politicians, what they want to do, they want to point fingers. Like, all of these, our congressmen and women, like the finger pointing has been sickening. It's like, screw that. We can do that later. Right now, the focus needs to be getting those people out of there.
And the thing is, the finger pointing doesn't make sense, because the way things have gone down, no one can say,
I am not a fault.
Or you're right. Or I would have did it. Hindsight's 2020. So everyone is looking at the situation and saying that they would have done XYZ differently. They're full of shit. I mean, we had 2 administrations that agreed on how they're going to, get out of Afghanistan. And this whole thing, this transition was fumbled. And it's crazy because I look at it happened so fast. The Paralympics are starting. One of the stories that truly breaks my heart is the Paralympics were starting, and there was a athlete coming out of Afghanistan. She was the first female athlete, and she was going to be competing in Taekwondo. The Paralympics just shouted her out on Twitter, and literally a day or two, all hell breaks loose, and it's like her and her team weren't able to get out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Super sad for all the people there that are just victims of circumstance, and I hate it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole instance, like, the people who are catching like the wrong end of the deal here are the people of Afghanistan, the civilians, the women and children. Like, they're the ones who are hurt by this. Like, of course, it's I love the fact that we're bringing home like our troops and stuff. I hate the idea of war. But it's like, man, almost like, why couldn't we should have done this a different way, to where, now women and little girls aren't fearing for their lives, and images of them are getting painted over now within within hours of the Taliban moving in. Images of women and children are being painted over now. Now they have to go back to these oppressive laws, and it's like,
Taliban is ruthless.
Afghanistan took leaps and bounds backwards in the matter of hours, and it's and we hold a lot of that blame as Americans.
We're gonna live with that. We're gonna live with that.
So I hate that, man. And another issue going on in the world, Haiti right. Just having another massive earthquake there.
And a hurricane.
Yeah, hurricane just blew over. It's probably maybe still have remnants there right now, but hurricane just going over within these past couple of days. The earthquake was last week. I think the death toll right now is up to like 1,900.
It's about 2,000. And I mean, you're talking about coming off just, 2010 where they had the massive earthquake.
Was it 2010?
2010, yeah. And that was like a loss of life that was spanned like over 200,000 people.
Really?
I think so.
I didn't realize it was that high.
It was very high. Port-au-Prince, the capital. And so Haiti just is getting hit. I almost feel like I got to fact check that to make sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, while you're doing, I mean, yeah, it's, I've, with us being here in the Bible Belt, we've known friends who have gone on trips to Haiti to help with the rebuilding process, to help with the restoration and all of the orphanages and everything else, building orphanages down there, homes for people and stuff. And, over the past decade, we've had friends do that. And it just feels like, man, this place, this island can't catch a break. And it's awful. It's heartbreaking. It's like how, to me, like when I heard the number, over 1,000, like last week, a couple days after the earthquake had happened, it was like, reports of like up to like 1,200 people are dead. To me, it's like, I can't even fathom 1,200 people dying from like an earthquake. To me, it's like, what have we been doing? Like, where has the international help come from? What has the international help been doing over the last decade since the last earthquake to where another one happens and another 1,200 people die? It's like, what the hell has been
infrastructure.
happening?
It's because, you got buildings that are just being put up by the people there, and the infrastructure is not great to sustain this. And so people are dying literally overnight when buildings are collapsing on them. Like it's a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah.
I do not have oh, yeah. So February, the prime minister estimated that 250,000 residences were severely damaged, and it's not telling me people. Hold on. Oh, and while I'm still looking at this, think about this. They just had their president assassinated before all this happened.
Very true. That is another wrinkle.
Like how much can one country take? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's awful, man. It's, but again, it all comes back to, and we're fighting over masks, like wearing masks, and yet, and like, and even people here want to talk about oppression and things like that. Like, you want to talk about oppression? Look at Afghanistan. You want to talk about, like suffering? Look at Haiti. Like, look at, like we've got it so good here, where the things that we pick and choose to fight over and cry about, I know the rest of the world looks at us and just goes, y'all are so soft.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So yes, that death toll was over 200,000. Can you imagine that? One event, 200,000 people.
It's hard for me to even imagine what 200,000 people are, yet alone them dying in one event. Awful.
Yeah, Haiti needs the world's help. And I think that we're talking about, they're having so many issues right now as far as like even trying to get aid to where the earthquake affected them right now. You can't even get aid there by road because the roads are manned by different gangs that are there. And so they're trying to fly stuff in. It's not as accessible as Port-au-Prince was. Prayers are going up for Haiti, but more than that, we need to actually have like,
we need like
action,
the UN, like people to come in and like, yo, we gotta start with infrastructure. We gotta like not take over, but man, we gotta come in and just pump in resources to the country to ensure that it doesn't keep happening. Dude, it feels like every single morning I wake up, I see a report of an earthquake somewhere else, like a pretty massive earthquake. I mean, it just goes into climate change, but that's a different topic for a different day.
We will.
But yeah, man, we just need, people need to come together. I mean, same thing in Afghanistan. Like when these places are hurting, I feel like it's imperative for a collective group of countries and places to come together and help lift up those people.
Isn't that why we have the UN?
Yeah, probably. I guess. I don't know.
United Nations. I mean, it sounds right?
Right.
Like,
y'all gonna be put on notice.
Y'all sleeping on the job.
But man, I want to end this. So, each episode, I think what we'll do is we're going to end it with that what hill are you willing to die on? So I'll present the question to you first here in ending. Basically, with current events, the way things are going on right now, what hill are you willing to die on this week?
Well, I wasn't going to go with current events. I was going to more so go with mental health. Even here, you speak about like what you were going through with your COVID. The hill I'm willing to die on is not to let issues kind of overwhelm me. Like because I found myself in that place yesterday, just having some thoughts and things like that. And sometimes it's like it can affect my mood. And so the hill I'm willing to die on is to not let my stinking thinking overcome me. What about you? What hill are you willing to die on?
Where do we get stinking thinking from? That sounds like a cheesy preacher quote.
Hey, I'm a speaker, so I got a bunch of cheesy stuff in my.
The hill I'm willing to die on, mine is more relevant to the times. And my biggest thing.
Were you trying to say mine wasn't relevant? Wow.
Mine just has to do with the refugees from Afghanistan. I think we need to be doing anything and everything to welcome as many refugees as possible. I'm pretty sure I saw Laura Ingraham, which I hate to even say her name on this show, but I saw a Laura Ingraham video talking about, do we have a responsibility to accept refugees? Should we be doing that? And it's like, yes. Very, very clearly, yes, we have a responsibility to.
I don't think there's ever been a more clear case than what's happening right now, for sure.
Absolutely. And so but of course, she's pandering to her audience, and she has a large audience in this country who are just sitting there thinking, going, you know what, she's right. Should we even be accepting refugees? Like, they don't, I mean, she had said citizens. Something about like, we don't know the threat any of them pose in coming over here. And it's like, look, man, we've been over there in their country for 20 years, dropping bombs on their country, killing innocent people for 2 decades. We absolutely have a responsibility to accept as many refugees as possible. They're displaced because of our involvement in their country. And so, governors across the country here, I'm sure the pressure is being turned up on them individually to whether they're going to accept or, deny refugees or something like that, or like say that, hey, our state here, we're open for refugees. What I love, the university right down the street from us, Tulsa University, TU, I saw an article. I didn't get a chance to open up and read it, but they're offering 2 scholarships, like full ride scholarships for 2 refugees from Afghanistan. And I didn't get a chance to open it. I read the article because I was, studying for different things. But I love to see things like that. Different either businesses, states, universities, whatever it is, like saying, hey, we're going to like open our arms, open our doors to those people. Because to me, that's like what being an American is. That's what America should be, is a sense of like, what is it? Like on Statue of Liberty, it says something like, give us your hurt and your broken and your something along those lines.
Yeah, I just think we should stop looking at people as what they're taking from us and view them in what they're bringing to us. You know what I mean? Like when you have people coming, like they can be assets when we provided context for them to grow, people to thrive. I mean,
right.
I don't know why. It's just people start looking at people as burdens, and that's not what a refugee is. Not in America. We don't need to make people feel like burdens here. Absolutely.
So, yeah, man, that's the hill I'm willing to die on. I'm willing to hit up my governor and be like, yo, we absolutely need to be taking in refugees. Hell, I'll go to DC and sing the steps and scream with my blowhorn. But yeah, man.
Well, so enjoyed having the conversation with you.
Yeah.
Hope you guys have enjoyed this. Catch you guys on the next one.
Check you later.